That was nice seeing New York not underwater and in all of its glory. Shout out to the New Yorkers who dealt with the flood. Hey y'all, it's your captain for all things creative coming at you with the Real Housewives of New York Reboot episode 12. If you are new to this channel, welcome. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you are returning, thank you so much for your time and the loyalty. Let's get into this episode. So, before we actually do that, we have some news that there's gonna be a casting for the Housewives of New York, and even though some people are thinking that there's some housewives that are going or gotta go, sorry, um, it seems like it might just be to replace the housewife that they had to get rid of in the middle of filming. Um, it could be also the case that Jenna might have quit because there's been some, stir about maybe her getting engaged and maybe her not wanting this to be her legacy since she has such a illustrious fashion career. So whether they're just, adding a friend or replacing the housewife that, had all that scandal and had to leave, or if one of the ones that we have gotten to know is leaving, they're casting now. So if you think you'll be good for the job, go, try to be a new housewife in New York. Well, let's get into the episode now. So we see Jessel and Pavitt in the beginning eating dinner, and then they're talking about the twins, and then they show a clip of them basically ignoring their music teacher, running around, being busy and cute. Then Jessel tells Pavitt about signing Erin being mean girls down to Anguilla, but she resolves to try to clear up misunderstanding at least with Sai because she says she respects Sai and she wants to have a lunch to explain that she's not trying to one up Sai about her life struggle, but just simply share her life. Pavel also shares that he's planning a staycation for them to reconnect intimately and end the sex drought in their marriage. So that is good. Next, we see Jenna and Bryn down to Henrietta Hudson, which is a lady bar, and they find somebody for both of them to flirt with actually, and then Bryn brokers Jenna a love connection with a young lady who ends up giving her phone number with a Sharpie provided by Bryn. And then the scene ends with Jenna dancing on the stage, doing a little sultry shimmy of her own. Next, there's the double date with Sai and her husband. I forget his name. I was trying to say his name, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna remember his name. And then Erin and her husband Abe. I only remember Abe because of Brit, because she's calling Abe the babe. But yeah, Sai's husband. She never showed him before on her, Scout the City platform. But I guess maybe because they're making her show him here is why she's trying to make everybody else share everything. But here the two couples are double dating, and it's interesting because Erin kind of, wants to highlight Jessel's lack of, you know, sex with Pavitt and make that like the main topic to gossip about. But then Abe does kind of like a little embarrassing Uno reverse and says that, he would cheat on her if they had stopped having relations. And Erin says she doesn't appreciate him saying all that in her confessional. And she asks him, well, what if I got sick or something, And he's like, no. So it actually reminded me of Love and Marriage Huntsville. There's like a guy named Maurice there who actually made his wife Kimmy have relations with him even when she was going through chemo. Because he's like, yeah, it's that important to me. And she even told him that she don't like it and it's like painful for her. But she does it for him and he's like, thank you. So he was also given that kind of vibe, like he wants sex by any means necessary. And he even said that he wants to open their bed to other people in 10 years and try swinging. And again, it's like the grave she was digging for Jessel, trying to embarrass Jessel. And she actually revealed that, Abe is not that serious about their marriage vows. They made all this big deal about renewing their vows. And he's talking about, leaving her if she don't have sex with him and basically opening up their marriage bed to other people. And that's why you got to be careful. You don't want gossiping and all that stuff because if you create, the kind of atmosphere to just, be negative and nasty, people could turn it around back on you. And Sly's husband says that he would just end their relationship if they went that long without sex. So both ladies say that Sly's husband gives a better answer. But to be honest, Pavitt wins the husband contest again for being patient with Jessel because she is going through, a lot with having the twins and the whole IVF ordeal. And he's been patient with her. And unfortunately, Cy and Aaron's husband, their own self, said that they wouldn't be as patient with their wives. So it's a very revealing scene. And again, if you don't remember anything, it's kind of like that story with Haman, the grave that he dug for Mordecai, he fell in. And even though Aaron was trying to embarrass Jessel, I would feel embarrassed if I was Aaron about, my husband talking all that smack about leaving me and having all these relations with other people and swinging if, you're in a position where you couldn't have sex with him. That's a little sad there to me as a married person. All right, the next scene, Bryn reveals that she's an antique book collector, and then she gets a call from her brother while she's like looking at all these old books at some store I've never been to, but it looked like a cool bookstore. And the brother and her talking about planting a tree in Central Park to honor their grandmother who had recently passed away. And that was a very heartwarming scene because no matter how, Bryn does all these, flirting antics and even the antics she had done with Jenna, she always, finds a way to get in your heart, pull on your heartstrings, so I think she's very good for the show. And I like how they balance her character. Yes, there's, the naughty stuff that she does, but there's always, these scenes that show that she's a person, she got a heart and soul. And it's going to be a long process for this tree because they're saying like the plaque takes maybe 4 to 5 months to make, and then she got to meet with the arborist. So they're looking at maybe the grandmother having a place in Central Park by the summer, but she assures her brother that she's on it and that their grandmother will be commemorated. Next, you see Uba hosting a healing session, which I thought is so wonderful because instead of talking behind people back like Aaron and Sai was doing, she sees that there are problems in the group and people having their issues with each other and with their marriages and just with life. And she's proactive about it. Instead of just gossiping about it, she has a healing session for the ladies, which I thought was so great. And there's a healer there who like does drumming and individual work with the girls as well. Like she goes to each and every one of them and like, talks to them. And it was really nice to see. Jenna was the first to arrive and she says she's also moved by it. Um Bryn had COVID so she couldn't come. And I think probably the one who was most affected was Uba because she really cries and has to like cover her face because she's kind of like breaking down about her mother. And Jessel was so sweet to like reach out a hand and she was kind of trying to hold Uba's arm just to let her know that, she was there for her, but silently so that she didn't interrupt, the other girls' processes. So their moment was very sweet, the Uba Jessel team. Aaron and Jenna and Uba and Jessel, I guess, all feel positive about the session. Besides the only one who's negative about it, kind of no shocker there. She's saying she doesn't need healing because she's perfect, and she's kind of making fun of the whole thing, which is really kind of a problem because just the idea that she's perfect, so she doesn't need the help, and only imperfect people need the help is such uh, uh it's it's a mindset that contributes to all the stigmas around mental health and therapy and healing, because newsflash, all of us are imperfect and everyone can benefit from healing and therapy. Even, people who seemingly have the perfect lives and have it all together because, we can all get different coping skills and you never know, what people are going through and what, things we have to process from our childhood and what we're going through when we take on new responsibilities, like when you get married and you have to negotiate, how to be a married person or how to negotiate being a parent, all those things that, you know, you never know what exactly to do about. You get tools, when you do the therapy and these kind of healing kind of things. So I just felt that, so I thought she was joking, but it's irresponsible. And her character just consistently has been so negative that I know that I have to work harder to have grace for her. But I do think that it shows partially why she operates the way she does, and also why she trauma dumps, all the time because she's not seeming like she embraces therapy. Maybe she uses her friends and these outings and trips as a way to get out her trauma. But again, you do not have to be, thinking that you have to be imperfect to have therapy because, again, we're all imperfect. So it's just a silly thing to say to me. All right, the next scene, we see Sai and her daughter, and it starts off with her daughter explaining how hard her ballet audition was. And then, Sai again, she kind of ends up making the scene more about her because while her daughter's talking about how hard the audition was, she's basically saying, well, you're going to do well. You always do well. And you're actually lucky because when I was growing up, I had no money and I had to do gymnastics on my living room couch and I could never afford anything. And, she's again doing kind of like the one upping thing. And it's kind of like there's some, I would say maybe some boomers and some parents that are older sometimes are like this where you try to tell your feelings. They're like, well, when I was growing up I only got popcorn for Christmas. It's like that kind of thing is something that I as a parent wouldn't do. It was done to me. There are times when I been upset. I was younger, a person like, what are you crying about? When I was young, blah blah blah. And a lot of times I know when I was a kid, I did not need that. I appreciated knowing more about my parents, and I did feel like it helped me understand them more. But there's sometimes you just want, shoulder to cry on, and not necessarily the, you know, comparison of the struggles. Like, yes, of course, my life was not as dramatically hard, but in this moment, what I'm telling you was hard for me, so it's important for me as a parent to just like hold space for my child to listen to them. And that's not saying my parents didn't do that. They did do that, but then there were times, sometimes where, they would do things like Sai's doing. And I think maybe she just can't help herself. She turns a lot of things into the struggle Olympics. If you tell her, that it was cold yesterday, she'd be like, well, I was freezing all my life. I never had heat. It just seems like it's a personality trait of her, a badge of honor of her to be the most struggling person in the room. And I guess, that's what we're learning about. But it's funny that when she was, telling her daughter about her struggles and how her first vacation wasn't until college and how she couldn't afford gymnastics. The daughter herself interrupts Sai and just starts crumpling tea paper and goes ASMR and just like cuts the scene. And I wish Sai would have took that as a cue from her daughter, to like stop that. But we're all, learning. I think Sai is a good mom, just the fact she was taking her child out, and being there for her in that way. But this struggle Olympics thing of her is a pattern. She does it with her friends, and she even did it with her daughter too. So next scene, you see Jessel and Pavitt. They're planning their staycation, and she models some lingerie for him, so it's very cute scene. Next, you see Uba having a bubble bath and FaceTiming with Bryn. And when I saw Uba's like chocolate and flower setup, I was like, this is self care at its finest. Everybody needs self care. It's good to be gentle with yourself, especially fall, like things ramp back up for like, school year, work year, summer's done. I mean, who doesn't appreciate bubble baths, chocolates, flowers? That was just awesome to see. And then Uva also was talking about her mom, how she thinks her mom will be proud of her for bringing the women together and do something positive, like the healing session. And I agree that Uva did well in doing that. And then Uva also catches up Bryn about Jessel and Pava doing their staycation to have relations. And then Bryn talks about maybe them going and visiting or sending, extra supplies to help them. But Uber ends the scene by being like, nah, you have COVID, chill, stay home. And, COVID's on the rise again. So please be careful, y'all. It's like a flu season thing, get your flu shots and also do all your COVID precautions and shots and all that. You should always wash your hands all year round, but obviously, when it's cold season, flu season, and when we're talking about COVID, the mask, the hand washing, all that. Remember, it helps, right? So then, next scene, it is after the staycation, apparently, and this is the lunch between Jessel and Sai. And this scene was just irritating. Oh my gosh. Um, what happens? This is the main thing that happened here. Jessel said they're supposed to be at 11, right? Sai, this is what she says on Watch Happen Live. Sai showed up 20 minutes late. And then Jessel shows up 40 minutes late. So while Sai was waiting for Jessel, you can see her get annoyed, but she does order a drink and some food because we know that Sai loves her food and she's always hungry. That's like another part of her personality besides the, having more trauma than anybody else in the room. And then basically this late thing I think is what probably made Sai go even more negative because already Sai said she didn't want to be there. We know that she has a tendency, to complain and be negative, and especially with Jessel, the Mean Girls, her and Aaron at least have this idea that Jessel is trying to compare her story to Brandon's side, which is not the case. They asked her to share several times. Jessel shared, and it's never enough. So there's already this negative situation going, and because Jessel was late, I think that put Sai in even more of a negative headspace. And for Jessel too, the lateness, it's something that some people could say is thoughtless, but I think that like when people are late subconsciously, they either don't want to be there because it's true. You're not gonna be late to like, let's say, a Beyonce concert, right? That you saved up and are excited about. You're not gonna be 40 minutes late to that, right? Places you want to be, you usually tend to make the effort, to be on time. And a lot of times when people are late, sometimes it's just life and accidents, but in Sai and Jessel's case, I think she's late because she's scared. She kind of doesn't want to do this confrontation. She's nervous about it. Or she could be punishing Sai too because of how mean Sai was to her unconsciously. So, yeah, especially when, someone is uncharacteristically late, you gotta think about why. What's the reason? And in this case, I think Jessel kind of didn't want to be there, kind of was punishing Sai. But then, basically, Jessel starts the convo by, saying that she had, I guess, wanted to start the weekend and maybe drink, but then Sai's like, no, she's not drinking. Friday's a working day. And just like, well, I always start my weekend on Friday. This is another mini fight that comes up. Not really, but I saw on the internet people were polling like, well, when does the weekend start? Is it Friday or Saturday? Now, for me, I think they both have a point. Friday, like usually after 4, especially New York, that's the weekend. Like, that's when people are doing the Sabbath. Most people won't, do any work like after 4 on Friday. So if you're, on the job, a lot of people will like go out for drinks after, stuff like that too. So I think the weekend does start on Friday, but specifically after 4, like Friday evening, whether it's like the Sabbath or just hanging out and celebrating the weekend. But before 4, it's still technically a business day, so they both have a point. So then, Sai, uh, I guess, gets her food, and then just like, oh, I want that food. So then Jessel orders the same food that Sai does. And she gets to tell Sai that her and Jessel had relations and that, it took her 20 minutes to warm up to it, but, they did the deed. And then Sai in her confessional gave up the negativity saying that she don't believe Jessel's story since there was zero details. But Jessel literally told her that it took 20 minutes for them to warm up. So, like, if timestamps aren't details, then, like, Sai can't be pleased. So, again, you see, she's already in this negative state. She's not believing Jessel, and she's probably annoyed that Jessel's late. So, this conversation is doomed. If it wasn't doomed from Anguilla, it's definitely doomed now. Then Jessel tries to apologize to Sai and just says, she hopes it didn't come across like she's trying to compare their struggles, but she's just, just trying to share. And she really hopes that Sai doesn't think that. And it was a sincere apology. And then Sai basically says she doesn't care. And it's just these kinds of scenes that makes me, again, struggle to find the grace for Sai. And I saw online a lot of people like, yeah, they don't like Sai. But it's just like this hard show. It's so unnecessary. Like, this girl's apologizing to you. You literally was yelling at her to share her life with you the last time y'all were talking about it, and now you're acting like you don't care. Very weird. And then she tells Jessel rudely that this could have been a phone call instead of a lunch, and it's just offense after offense. I hope Sai sees this and is like course corrects, because again, a lot of the fans are turned off by this. I was turned off by this whole exchange. Then Jessel tries another attempt to connect with Sai and tries to share her story more, and basically says, like, the reason why it was hard for her to talk about that point in her life when she was in New York is because, especially after Sai had told a story about her mother, dealing with alcoholism and all that, Jessel, would have to also, talk about how she was living with her uncle who struggled with addiction and then died as well, so that's why she says it's hard for her to open up about that part of her life. And she's scared to, tell Aaron and Sai about these kinds of things because she said, they're like vultures and they're always complaining about what she says and trying to tear it apart. So, it's hard for her. And then Jessel's in tears, like she just starts crying, pouring herself out to this. And Sai again in the confessional being insensitive, saying that their stories are apples and oranges. And inside, in the middle of Justice crying, like, listen, your story is your story. My story is my story, and I gotta go. And she just gets up and leaves Jessel crying. And she starts asking for the check. And then Jessel just, you could tell she gave up. She's like, no, no, go ahead, just leave. I'll get the check. And I could see Jessel just like give up a little inside. And I thought that was smooth of her to be like, no, 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 please go. Like, this is not working out. Even her confessional, Jessel's like, yeah, we're not seeing eye to eye. And in this case, I do not think that Jessel was trying to compare it to. I think she was trying to relate. And it's a real story. It's like, especially if they're saying how, oh, it was so great because Jessel had someone to live with. She's saying, like, actually, I was living with an alcoholic, and it was hard. And that uncle died because of his addiction, And so I still can't open up her heart. And just this lack of empathy, it's astonishing, but it's not surprising. There are people that lack empathy, especially when they're already other people. It's really just like almost impossible for people to see the humanity once they've already, like placed you in a box and connect. And for me, Sai's given xenophobia. She's given the fact that she's already wrote Jessel off as this immigrant who lies, who doesn't, have a story that's worth respecting. And it's sad to see women treat each other like that. And women should treat each other like princesses. We go through enough in this world. And just for Sai to be so cold hearted. I mean, after all that she's been through, it's hard to watch. So again, I feel like Sai, like all people, could benefit from therapy. Therapy helps. And, you know, if anything, I feel like this show shows how like not being self aware can really hurt your ability to like have better connections with people and have a life where you can mediate your feelings and respond you know empathetically. So let's do the awards. The queen of the episode was Uba because her hosting that healing event I thought was so great, and I think her healer was great. And again, instead of judging and being negative about all the trauma and bad feelings and fights in the group, she was proactive about it. And that's kind of how I like to be. I always like to say, okay, what can I do? If I can't, be part of the solution, then I'd rather not be part of the problem than make problems. And I think Uba, she shows that she's a queen by trying to make solutions and helping the people heal. My heart went out to two people this episode. My heart went out to Bryn, for the whole memorial journey for her grandmother. It's a good way to deal with grief for some people, to do something like, turn it into a project. It's one way people heal. So I think this tree planting in Central Park is going to be healing for her and her brother. So shout out to, Brent for facilitating that and taking on the work because it seems like her brother who's in Korea is depending on her to like do all the legwork for that. And then with Jessel, again, my heart went out to her in a lot of ways. One, because the group is giving her all this grief about her sex life. When she opened up to them about it, she didn't have to, and they're turning into jokes and gossip. But I'm glad that her and Pavi, were able to be intimate again. So now the girls don't have nothing to talk about. They need to find something else to gossip about. And also, I'm glad that, Shelly's tried to make things right with Sai. But again, the Bible say, "Don't cast your pearls to swine; they will trample them." So I hope Jessel takes her precious feelings, her precious life story, her precious energy, and keeps it to herself because these girls don't see it for her. So I hope she sees now that Sai and Aaron have showed who they are. She need to believe them and stop trying to, you know, offer up her precious time and self to them. The naughty list definitely Aaron for still gossiping about Jessel's sex life. And I I don't have her in timeout because I do feel like Abe embarrassed her. So even though she was trying to gossip, her own tea got spilled. So I hope she learned her lesson and, look after her own house and her own affairs because that's very important too. Like there's this saying in my culture, okay, and they say a donkey's ears are long, but they don't know their own story. People say donkey ears long, but you don't know his story. And with her, she's got all this energy about Jessel's marriage, but it could be projection. Maybe she does know that, things are not heading to, the most monogamous place with her husband, which is why she did all the renewing vows and all that. So hopefully, she just leave Jessel alone and get her own marriage right way. Abe. Next, who's in timeout? Sai. I hope Sai gets, this idea out of her head that she's perfect and that she don't need therapy because she's hurting people all along the way. And they say hurt people, hurt people. I do think Sai has a lot to process. She's clearly been through a lot. And she's triumphed a lot, as a businesswoman, but just because she's doing well in business, and I think a lot of people feel like, okay, if you're doing well, you got your money right, you can ignore, a lot of those inner things that you brush under the rug. But really, you got to work from the inside first. You got to fix the inside of the house so that the foundation is good. And I just hope that she watches herself this season and apologizes to people like Jessel, who she's just been giving the blues to. And yeah, just like learns from what the camera is catching because it's not pretty, man. So that's all. Next week, let's look like Sai's gonna continue to be mean to Jessel, and Jessel's gonna confront her. You're gonna see the girls also gossiping about Pavic going to Vietnam, and then Pavic having something to say about the girls. I do think the husbands are pretty great. I wonder if this is going to turn to a Housewives of New Jersey situation where the husbands get a significant amount of camera time because I actually like them more than the wives at this point. But we shall see. No matter what, remember you're the master of your fate and the captain of your soul. And I'll see you next time. Bye.